is a sad but very important story. Andy Parker's daughter, Allison, was shot and killed on live TV. It happened in 2015, and I'm sure as our conversation unfolds, you'll remember this case. Mr. Parker, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry it's in these circumstances. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to be here, especially with all hell breaking loose around in Ukraine and Russia.
Well, I committed to talk about this. I've already spoken about that. I think yours is a very important story, and I want to know all about it. First of all, for the benefit of those who will watch us on YouTube, I take it that over your left shoulder is an image, a photograph of your daughter. Tell me about her.
Oh, gosh, how much time do you have? She was just remarkable. She was, I think the best way to describe Allison was that she was a kind and generous soul, and she mentored folks. She was, who you saw on TV was that person that she was, in reality, and people just adored her, and I think that's why her story and the people that she touched, that's why it resonates. Her spirit and her legacy resonates to this day.
Was this her calling? Had she always wanted to work in journalism?
Well, I think it was a band trip. She was in the band. Listen, she was one of these kids that anything she touched, anything she tried, she excelled at. And she was a great trumpet player, and she was a French horn player in the Martinsville High School band. And they had typically taken trips to Disney World, right, for their senior trips. Well, it was, I guess, her senior year in high school, they decided not to go to Disney World, but they went to Atlanta and they toured the CNN building. And I've got this great picture of her that's out in front with a big, you probably have seen those since you're, if you've been down.
I have, sure.
At the corporate headquarters.
The big letters.
CNN in front.
Yep.
Big letters. She was there, and it was that trip that she decided, this is what I want to do. And the interesting thing is, as she got a little older and she matured, and she was the ugly duckling that became the beautiful swan. And initially, she wanted to go into print journalism. She wanted to, she was the news editor for The Breeze at JMU, which I'm wearing her alma mater's shirt here. But I said, Allison, you got to use your assets, and television is where you need to be. And so, from then on, she was very focused and got her first job before she got her diploma, graduating from JMU.
I promise I won't dwell on the facts, but I do want to remind folks, it was 2015. She's working for a CBS affiliate, which is WDBJ. More specifically, it was August 26th, and she's doing a live shot. What's the short version of what unfolded?
Well, she and her photographer, Adam Ward, were doing what they were doing every day. They were just working. They were, she had a story. It was pretty boilerplate stuff. And a former coworker that had been out of the picture for at least 2 or 3 years ambushed them both and basically executed them, videotaped her murder on a GoPro, and Allison, through some of the video that was captured by Adam Ward, her photographer, that ended up on social media as well. But it was basically she was killed on live television.
Were you watching at the time?
No, thank God. We used to joke with her. We watched her first couple of hits when she got to the station, and they were at the crack of dawn. And we said, "That's great, Allison. We're going to catch up. From here on, we'll just watch the clips on the web when they're posted." So we were not watching, and we got a call at like 7:30 that morning.
Mr. Parker, I understand, although millions sadly have seen the footage of your daughter being murdered, you've never seen it. Is that true?
I have not.
And
I'm not.
how
And
have you
Michael,
been
it's
able to
like
keep?
a landmine out there.
Yeah, well, because it's so ubiquitous, how have you been able to keep away from it?
Uh, if I know something or see like a thumbnail or something to that effect, I just avoid it. Several years ago, Facebook had this autoplay, and there was a documentary that we were, I guess, Chris Hurst, her boyfriend, and I were somewhat a part of, that was produced by I'm Katie Couric, and it just sort of, I was looking at the oh, here's the trailer, and it was um all of a sudden the autoplay started going, and I had to quickly turn away. But those are the kinds of landmines and unexpected ambushes that you run into out there.
So here's the issue. You are trying to expunge your daughter's murder from the internet and struggling to do so. As I understand it, and you've explained, there were two different versions. One from her assailant, from her murderer, using a GoPro who captured everything. In fact, let me stop there. Has that footage entered the public domain?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
It's been, for the most part, removed, but there's still there are still examples of it floating around out there.
And separately, the cameraman who was filming her live shot in part also captured her execution. So it's those two films that you're seeking to have removed from the internet, from wherever they might be. What is the issue? What's the difficulty that you're facing?
Well, the issue that I'm facing, it's called Section 230, and it was a law that was passed in 1996, before anyone knew about social media. And the original idea was it was a noble idea that we want to encourage free speech. We don't want to have any impediments on what's posted on the internet. But again, no one envisioned Facebook and YouTube at that point in time. But what it's done, what that law did, was provide total immunity from any kind of liability for these social media platforms. And that's the issue. If that liability was removed, then this stuff wouldn't be happening.
Well, there's a question of immunity, but there's also a question of decency. Do you think that the various platforms have the ability to remove it if they had the desire to do so?
Michael, they absolutely do. And that was borne out by Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower's testimony back in October. And she validated everything that I've been saying for the last 6 years. And that is, these companies, Google and Facebook, profit from Allison's murder. They profit from it. They want to keep this stuff up. They have the ability to do it. They have the algorithms and the AI. Whether they have the human assets, they have some, but they're certainly not doing enough. But the bottom line is, they can do what they do and get away with it because they can.
Who owns the copyright to each of the pieces of video that you've described?
Well, the one at issue right now is Gray Television. Gray Television owns the video of the cameraman's footage. We don't know that the killer's, his family vanished. He killed himself. And so there's not a lot we can do about that. But what we can do, and what we've done, and I work with Georgetown University Civil Rights Law Clinic. We've been working on this for years now. And over the last 2 years, we have requested that Gray grant us a co-copyright of the video. Section 230 shields these companies from any liability, with the exception of copyright violations. So if we can use that, we can. I call it the Al Capone prosecution. You can't get them on the big stuff, but you get them on that. And inexplicably, Gray has refused to give us co-copyrighted the
Well,
video.
I don't understand.
It's immoral and despicable.
They were your daughter's employer when she was murdered. What justification could they possibly have for not giving you whatever you want?
Well, they were actually not my daughter's employer when she was killed. Schurz Communication owned the station, and then within a month,
Gray bought them?
Subsequently, they bought them. Gray bought them, and along with the purchase of the station came the video and the copyright.
Oh, okay, so I'm corrected in terms of who was her employer on the day she was murdered, but they own the copyright. Why won't they help you?
That's a good question, and I wish you'd ask them, because they refuse. They've been ghosting us. They've tried to intimidate me. They've threatened me because I started a petition through change.org that has over 180,000 signatures. These people are the model. If Facebook and Google are bad, Gray Television is worse, because they will not do the right thing. They refuse to help. The only thing they said was, well, we'll give you a usage license. Well, that's great. What am I going to do with a usage license? Replay my daughter's murder? I mean, how cynical and how just despicable is that? And that's been their answer. And we cannot get any, the media subsequent to the Washington Post article that came out when we created this NFT, they're asking them for, their response, and it's either a lie or there's no response at all.
I just can't. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm trying to be open-minded and think, what business justification, moral justification might they have to not be cooperative? But I can't think of anything. I don't want to bury the lead.
I can't either.
Okay, so given the circumstances,
nobody can explain it.
Given the circumstances, you lost your daughter. The video is out there. You can't get the cooperation of her then employer. And the copyright situation being as you've described because of Section 230, your approach now is the NFT approach. I confess, I don't understand NFTs, so give me the short version on what they are and how this might help you.
Well, I'm only slightly more versed than you are. To me, NFTs and Bitcoin, it's all kind of in that same realm. But what an NFT, and I guess the closest thing that I can compare it to is, I noticed recently that Phil Mickelson has created NFTs of his famous shots that apparently the PGA Tour owns, and he wants those videos of some of his famous shots. So in a sense, that's what we're trying to do with this. We claimed the NFT, and in lieu of a copyright, if we can't get the copyright, we'll create an NFT and see where we go in court with it.
In other words, the NFT would similarly capture your daughter's murder, and you would then use that as a litigation tactic to say, okay, I now have a vested stake in this, and therefore I want it taken off the internet.
Correct.
And did the folks at the Georgetown Law Center help you craft this strategy? I have immense respect for them.
They, they did what they could. The law firm of Kerry Goldberg, they helped. I mean, they looked at it. This is uncharted territory. Literally, we're throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. Hopefully, this is going to. We don't know if this is going to work or not, but you have to do something, Michael. I mean, this is the only thing that I have. This is the only recourse that I have left, other than to, first of all, we filed complaints against Google 2 years ago with the FTC for violating their terms of service. Of course, not a peep from the FTC. We did the same thing the week after Frances Haugen's testimony. We filed one against Facebook. And again, no comment, no nothing. So at that point, I thought, I've taken this thing as far as I can as a private citizen. And the only way to fight it now is through Congress. And that's why I decided to run for Congress.
So what can people do to help you? I mean, my heart breaks for you. You're a good dad. And I'm so sorry to see that you have to go through this again and again and again with people watching this on a constant basis. There's something twisted about people who would want to watch this, by the way. But what's the ask if there is one? Well,
I would say don't watch it, because it's it's traumatizing. It would be traumatizing for anybody that does.
Right.
Number one. Number two, go on my petition, go online at change.org, sign my petition, call Gray Television, call them and say, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing the right and decent thing for this man? And I would ask your listeners to do that, and then support me in my campaign. I'm running against a guy who I consider the Marjorie Taylor Greene of Virginia, Bob Good in the 5th District. And, so he's kind of a product of all this, the misinformation. Yeah. If we don't fix social media, and I'm not doing this just for me. There are other people that have been harmed. I guess am probably the more visible of those that have. And so I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it for other folks as well. Because it's an issue that really transcends the political divide. It resonates across the political divide. People, I don't care if they're Republicans or Democrats. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's an American issue.
I agree with you.
And if we don't rein these guys in to prevent them from spreading misinformation, pornography, illegal gun sales, drug sales, harassment, bullying, I could go on. For all the great things that Google and Facebook have done, there is this underbelly that we see out there. And if we don't do something about it, and today is a good example. Russia invades Ukraine. Well, there are two things that Russia's good at. Otherwise, they're a failed state. They pump oil and they hack. And what we've seen is that these guys, Facebook and Google and YouTube to a degree, have just allowed Russian hackers to come in and promote these false narratives and conspiracy theories. So if we don't do something about this, we're going to lose our country.
Andy Parker, I wish you all good things. Thank you so much for your willingness to come on and explain this story to me. I've been watching it from a distance. Now I feel like I have a better handle, and I do hope that people will reach out for Gray Television. I'm going to reach out through my producer to Gray Television and offer them the opportunity to come on and explain themselves, because I'd love to hear what possible justification there might be to not support you. So thank you for being here. And
good luck with that. Hey, one more thing, Michael. Congressional candidates don't have running mates, but as you can see over my left shoulder, I do, and she's going to be with me every step of the way.
Good for you.
And I appreciate your having me on.
You're serving her proudly. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Andy.
Thank you.
TC, what it reminds me of is and maybe not to the extent of Andy Parker, but how people are just not enabled to move on from tragedy if it's been captured on videotape or in a still image, because I know that there are twisted websites that exist for no purpose other than to profit based on the tragedy of my guest or others like him.
It's just so disgusting. I can't even begin. It sort of takes my breath away thinking about what that poor man has to go through to avoid seeing his daughter killed.
I mean, how do you take it down? How do you just make it go away?
We talk about viral tweets. We talk about nothing being able. I mean, this is the ultimate version of that with such ramifications. And to know that he's trying and can't is just boggles the mind.
Sad story.
Whew.
Okay, back right after this.